Pitt football is 5-0 and ranked within the AP top 25, and now will turn its attention towards an intriguing matchup with the Cal Golden Bears, a team that has not been in the Steel City since 1963, over 60 years since a matchup within the Steel City. We welcome you into the Pittsburgh Sports Now Football Pulse. I'm Nathan Brysinger, joined by a special guest today, an ACC Network and ESPN football analyst, Eric McLean, to talk more in depth about this Pitt start and this matchup with Cal. Eric, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, appreciate you having me, brother. It's great to talk about the Panthers because Pitt is lit, man, and these boys are rolling. It's been really fun to watch.
They are absolutely rolling, and no one better to talk about it than someone who's played in the conference, someone who continues to follow these teams day in and day out. And for you, over on Twitter, over on X, you put a power ranking out every single week. And your first ranking this season had Pitt at 10. You have them at 4 now. You've had them at as high as 3. Did you expect them to have this kind of start and have them that high on your rankings so far?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I don't know who would, who would say that. Because even if you ask Coach Narduzzi back in the day, and unless he's lying to me, maybe he is. But he said Eli Holstein just kind of came out of nowhere, right? And just really exploded in about the middle of camp. Because I'm talking to him at a couple of different things at Media Day and Amelia Island, and didn't hear a word about Holstein, and here he is, and just how good he has been. And I think it's also it's hard to project what a new offense like this will be, right? I mean, it's when you bring it in, and from the FCS level, tempo, speed. I mean, something totally different than what has since I've been covering it. What Pitt has tried to be and tried to look like. Now I know they slinged it all over the yard, with Kenny Pickett and the things that they would do there. But that was a 5th, 6th year guy. That's an old guy, and this is brand new offensive coordinator, freshman quarterback, and it's been so fun to watch, man. So no, absolutely not. Did not think that they'd be there. And I do want to address the everybody's like Pitt won and they fell. I didn't demise Pitt. I just rewarded SMU for what they've been doing in the win that they had. So it's nothing against Pitt. It's just SMU getting a bump up there. I've been very impressed with what Pitt has looked like, and hopefully they keep it rolling.
Yeah, and that was an excellent win for SMU over a top 25 opponent, and Pitt will see them down the road here in November. But yeah, you talked about, I mean, Nate Urnell was kind of pointed as the guy throughout spring, throughout
Right.
fall, until Eli Holstein took everyone by surprise, even, within the Pitt media, took us by surprise. And then by sort of week 3, week 4 of camp, we kind of felt that he was going to be the guy, and he's sort of taken the reins by storm. He's leading a top 10 offense in the country. He's putting up incredible numbers, 15 passing touchdowns, even more on the ground. He's just doing it all. What has impressed you so much about Eli Holstein so far?
Well, really, to me, man, it's just the command of the offense. I mean, he looks like he's been in this thing, for 4 years, and this is his first year, and he's just a young, man at this point, being a redshirt freshman. Delivery of the ball, clearly. I mean, he's pushing the ball downfield. 9 yards per an attempt is really impressive to see. The clips with the turnover to touchdown ratio is fantastic. His athletic ability, I don't think people are giving him enough credit. With how good he is with his legs. I mean, he's the second leading rusher on this team right now. The things that he has, been able to really do there is impressive. And just leadership. I mean, the moxie, the excitement that he brings, the passion. I mean, you see him with his helmet, off screaming, jacked up and super excited. I love all of that. And it's really fun to watch. And then probably lastly, how he distributes the ball, to the, core group of guys here. You're looking at 6 guys that have 14 plus catches that he's getting the ball out to: receivers, tight ends, running backs. Desmond Reed, my gosh, how fun he's been. And it's complete ownership of it all and getting the ball out that's been a joy to watch.
Now, you've obviously, I mean, playing at Clemson with different quarterbacks, covering the ACC. What's the best comparison you can make of Eli Holstein to a guy you've either played with, you've seen, just the way he's been able to take over, this young in his career?
Yeah, yeah. Is it crazy to say Kenny Pickett? Is it crazy to give it? It's Steel City brother there, a guy that played a ton, when he was young, and obviously we know what Kenny could do with his legs. I think he's got a little bit of a stronger arm, and comps are always so hard, right? When you're
Mhm.
looking at, because I'm sure we all, but I am the worst at it. I'm not comparing people to run of the mill quarterback. I'm comparing them to Hall of Famers, right? I
Mhm.
want what the ceiling can be, and people hate that. So they're like, what? This guy can't be X. He can't be this. He can't be that. And but that's what I like, and I like looking at traits that remind me, of people of that nature, and certainly think that. When you just kind of sit back and think, okay, this is what he's doing in year one, we potentially have 3 more years of this if he wants it. And if NIL and all those things, if you can keep him, to keep his eligibility even when he can go to the NFL, man, that could be really fun in a hurry. What Pittsburgh could be over the next, counting this year, 4 seasons.
And you talked about Desmond Reed and talked about some of the weapons that Holstein has to his advantage. And one of these guys, Desmond Reed, who's probably the most important because he's second in the nation in all-purpose yards per game at 193.5. I mean, how fun has it been to watch this kid play?
Yeah, it's electric, man. And it's funny. You saw what he did last year at the FCS level, and coming with this coordinator, from a year ago, and you're just like, okay, we'll see what this can be, what it'll look like. But he's been so explosive and so dynamic, and it's what he did to an extent, especially being a pass catcher. But he had like 20 catches last year. He's well over that already, and we've got plenty of season still to go. And just what he's done as a returner, just to be an absolute weapon, with everything that he does is fun to watch because, and quite frankly, Pittsburgh acknowledging that, knowing that, and getting it to him. Like he's the second leading receiver as well. And so that's what I love about it. Your second leading rushers, your quarterback, your second leading receivers, a running back. I mean, we are moving the ball, whatever it takes, however you want to do it, and getting it to the best guys on the field. And I think that kind of clutch factor, that kind of we know what time it is, and the fact my eyes pop down here. He's got the most receiving touchdowns. Reed does. So it's fun football. It's aggressive football and it's fast. And that's what I've really been blown away with how these guys are stepping up within the offense at such a breakneck speed.
And it's been so hard for all these teams to limit or try to limit one, two guys because there's so many weapons, as we've mentioned, Des Reed, Kanate Mumfield, Poppy
Yeah.
Williams, all these guys down the receiving chart. Kenny Johnson, Bartholomew is a guy who we've talked about, still been kind of underutilized.
Yeah.
Narduzzi
Let's get
and
him the ball. Come on, let's go.
Narduzzi and tight end coach Jacob Bernowski said he might be one of the more unlucky tight ends in the entire nation. But these pieces have all thrived under this new offense under Cade Bell. What were sort of your initial thoughts when Pat Narduzzi switched things up? He went sort of from old school coordinators finally to a young guy, innovative, that pushes the ball and likes to score.
Yeah, well, we were excited, right? Because it takes a lot to go out of your comfort zone, to go and get something that, because he's a defensive guy at the end of the day, right? Like he does not want to put his defense in any type of jeopardy, but that's kind of what this could have done, at the end of the day, because when you're going fast, and if you're not going anywhere, you go fast 3 and out, your defense is right back on the field. You get back out there fast 3 and out, your defense is right back on the field. So it could have been this really adverse situation that a defensive minded guy, you're like, no way, he's not going to do it. And when he did, we're just like, okay, this is going to be something to watch. But to me, man, it really, obviously that's a great decision. And right now it looks unbelievably great. But you have to have a guy that can run it. And you have to have a guy like Holstein. I don't know what Nate Yarnell would have looked like as the guy in this thing, if he would have had the similar abilities or concepts, whatever it is. I know he's an older guy. I know he's been through a lot, but just the moxie and the things that you're seeing on the field from a guy like Holstein, it takes that, right? It takes having a guy at quarterback. And I remember back to 2011, going into my freshman year at Clemson. We went from lining up and split back and I formation to Chad Morris wide open all over the field. And we had a guy in Taj Boyd that could operate that and that could get the ball out and could distribute it and get it to a bunch of different players. So I don't quite know. Maybe, I mean, 5-0, it's trending very positively, just like we were in 2011, and we'll see where this thing goes. It's going to be interesting to see the race that Pittsburgh is going to be in right now. I'm sure we're going to talk about it here in a second, but I mean, the schedule is brutal. It is not favorable to end this thing out. And if they do it, man, this is going to be one of the most tested teams in the entire country when you see how they finish, and they'll get everything that they deserve.
and the schedule is definitely tightened up for sure. And
Yeah.
obviously it starts now with Cal coming in. Um, Now again, first time in over 60 years that these two teams have met.
Yeah.
ACC newcomer Cal's traveling across the country back into the Eastern time zone. After that game at home against Miami, what do you sort of expect from this Cal team coming into this matchup? The energy you sort of expect them to bring?
Yeah, it is going to be interesting just to see that mindset because you're talking about a team that had every chance to win, that probably felt like they should have won, and then yet give up 25 points to close out a game and lose, and at home. So I hope we see a really inspired, kind of pissed off team. I hate seeing anybody kind of quit and tuck their tail. So I hope we see that because it should be and could be, a really interesting matchup. I mean, you have an offense in Pittsburgh that is wide open, that obviously thrives throwing the ball, pushing it downfield. And you have a Cal defense that's really good. You have a Cal defense that is amongst the best in the country at intercepting the ball and taking the ball away. And they scored a touchdown, last week, a pick six, against maybe the Heisman frontrunner in Cam Ward. So when you look at it on paper, it has all the makings to be an outstanding game. But as you mentioned, coming off a loss, it will be fascinating to see where's that team's mindset and just how are they going to be prepared going into this thing.
Now let's touch more on Cal's defensive ability to take the ball away. This is a team again, 11 interceptions on the year, and for Eli Holstein, he's a guy that likes to air it out, but has turned it over a few times early in games this season. Had the pick six against North Carolina. What does Holstein need to do to avoid turning it over, and still push the ball down the field?
Yeah, it's so much of a thing, man, where you are, you're a little bit back and forth because you don't want to, you don't want to take away who you are, which is not, I wouldn't call him a gunslinger. I think there's some negative connotation behind that. But he's a guy that's going to push the ball downfield, right? He's a guy that's not afraid to take shots. I even think of the throw to Kanata Mumfield, where I don't know if he got hit, kind of floats in the air and really didn't even look like it went to him, but it was, so far underthrown. Kanata kind of slams on the brakes and catches it at the 1 yard line there. It just feels like to me those type of plays are going to be picks. Like you can't make those. And I know if he did get hit, that's a different story, but you have to be relatively careful with what you're going to do there. And again, you're going against a defense that has played 5 games and has 11 picks. Like, that's a lot. That's not an accident. Okay, that they didn't just stumble into it. They really take that approach, and they were number one in the country last year. In turnovers forced, and so that's kind of who they are. And so you want to pay attention. Not that you want to be careful, but you want to be, observing what's kind of going on and where guys are.
Now and then looking at this Cal team offensively, this might be one of the fastest teams that Pitt's played to this point, maybe all season. And they have a speedy backfield with Jaden Ott, Javian Jet Thomas has the name there for a reason. But they also can catch it out of the backfield. We saw that against Miami. How does Pitt find a way to limit these guys?
Yeah, well, you know what's fascinating about the Miami game is that was really for the first time, this season that we saw Cal able to make really chunky plays. I mean, they had some massive throws down the field, and just kind of looking at these completions, 57 yards, 66 yards, 56 yards, 51 yards. And it's not like those were, as you mentioned, bombs, all of them. Those were kind of get it to them short, let them run and take off. So you need to be really disciplined, almost have that don't let anything behind us type of mentality, and then swarm to the ball. We all know that Pittsburgh's kind of calling card is normally, such a solid defense, and those guys have played well. I don't think it's necessarily as good as, some of the championship years and championship level defenses, but can grow into that. So got to be aware of that. Interestingly enough, Cal has kind of been up and down running the football. The things that they've been able to do. I don't think that we've really seen the best performance from Jaden Ott yet. I mean, he had 2 yards rushing against Miami. That's just crazy to think about a guy that is that skilled. But on the other side, he had, 75, 78 yards receiving. So, it's one of those things where he's a home run threat. You got to bottle him up and have to be aware of where he is at all times.
And Pitt's been a team that's been pretty susceptible to getting down early. We saw it at Cincinnati. We saw it against West Virginia going into the third quarter. North Carolina was a game that was pretty even, but still tied at halftime. Now, Cal's coming off of a game where they were up big. against Miami, and then they find a way to they're unable to pull it off, and Miami finds a way to win. Is Pitt going to be able to do that this game and get, if they get down early in the first half, are they going to be able to find a way to come back, or do you think this Cal team is going to know how to adjust and keep that lead this time?
Right. Well, you don't ever want to be down, right? You don't want to have to do it. And you hope that, you can kind of take some things of, okay, what did Miami do in the second half of the third quarter and in the entire fourth quarter? How were they able to get the ball and move it at will? And obviously defense have their, showing and kind of shut things down for the rest of the way there. But to me, to directly answer it, can they come back? Sure. I mean, when you have a quarterback in an offense that goes that fast, that can throw the ball at will, you're never out of a game. It's more of, if you're a game control the clock, run it team, that now you're in a weird spot. It's like, can you physically, do the things that you need to do? With Pitt, I have no worries about that. Unless it's some, crazy insurmountable lead, you never quite feel like you're out of a game when you have an offense that can produce the way that they do.
Now, looking at this game between these two teams that haven't played in a long time, Cal sitting 3-2, coming off of, two tough losses with Florida State as well in there. What's sort of your game expectations for this one?
Yeah, again, I think it's one of those things just to see mentally, where is Cal? Coming off back-to-back losses, tough. The way that they kind of happened. I mean, you really felt like the FSU game, you just lost it. You had it there and couldn't get anything going. Let a team that has been really struggling in FSU beat you. And then a team, as you mentioned, I think it was 35-10 at one point. Just seems like the game is done. It's over. And you somehow lose. That's it, it's brutal. And so you got a choice to make. How are you going to go after it? What are you going to do? At the end of the day, I mean, I think Pitt does their thing. I think they get this dub, continue to roll, really lean on that offense, lean on your quarterback, really make things happen there. I'm looking for the line. I don't see it anywhere. I don't know what the points is. Three. It's three.
Yeah. Yep. Field goal.
I think you feel good about that, man. I think you feel good about Pitt covering that and really making it happen to go on a win streak here of 6.
Now, if Pitt can pull this off and go 6-0, I mean, they're going to be really rolling at this point. I mean, doubles their wins from last year at 3-9. I mean, the expectation was, I think, 5.5. The line was set by ESPN to start the year, and they would succeed, or they would exceed that. But is this success sustainable throughout the rest of the schedule? You mentioned earlier, we're going to talk a little bit here about the rest of the schedule. They have, following Cal, they have a bye week, and then they play Syracuse on a Thursday home game, and then SMU in November, and then from there on out, Virginia, and it gets a little bit tougher with Clemson, Louisville. Is this sustainable?
Yeah, it is a brutal schedule. Like, I was not joking when I said that. I mean, you have, electric quarterbacks up and down. I mean, honestly, the finish after Cal, when you look Syracuse through Boston College, you're talking about 6 dudes that are legit at quarterback, and you're facing some monsters in the things that they do. Obviously, Kyle McCord, the 4th leading passer in the country, 2nd in touchdowns. KJ at SMU, Kevin Jennings, coming into his own, absolutely looking like a problem. Calandry at Virginia just had a massive victory at home, defended home turf. A guy that's really fun to watch, a little turnover prone, or has been, wasn't against Boston College, and makes it happen. Clemson, I mean, a monster that is just getting stronger, it seems like, every week. Louisville, I know we saw them lose back-to-back, but you have a dynamic quarterback and the things that Tyler Shook wants to do, and then you finish at Boston College with Tommy Castellanos that is just all over the yard. It is going to be fun, I'll tell you that, to watch these duels between these quarterbacks, Holstein versus all those guys. How does he play against them? I know it's not mano a mano like 2 boxers, but it is. We love to see how do quarterbacks fare against other quarterbacks. Do they win the matchup? Do they have more yards? Do they get the W? Do they perform better? Are they the reason the team won, not the reason the team lost? So when I look at these, I think of SMU, Clemson, probably Louisville as the toughest defenses that they're going to play. Other than that, it might be a track meet, and I think you're built for that. I think you're excited for it. We'll see. If Cuse goes 500 in that stretch, to me, that's an unbelievable job. That's a W, really fun to watch. If they come out with a winning record, look out, man. I mean, it's really, really exciting to see what they're able to do right now.
Pitt fans have a lot to look forward to, and it starts with this
Dude,
matchup
dude.
against Cal on Saturday. Eric, appreciate you so much for joining us. Love to do it again sometime.
Anytime, brother. Appreciate you, and this is great. Keep it going, brother.
Absolutely. And be sure to check everything out, all of our content over at PittsburghSportsNow.com. And we thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Pittsburgh Sports Now Football Pulse.